Happy Monday to... I need to come up with a name for my friends. The Zack Millerites doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Maybe Zack Miller Nation. What's up, Zack Miller Nation? It's me, Zack Miller. That's spelled Z-A-C-K Miller. So, I've been looking through a lot of old content, and it's really quite interesting how when I look through it, I just think back at like some of the stuff that I've created. And some of the stuff's like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, and it's quite fascinating. It's very fascinating, and honestly, some of it I totally forgot that I had created. Now, this is going to sound insanely ridiculous, but in 2012-ish time frame, along with Hatch, I also created this thing called Silicon Anchor. I think was the business name, and we had like this website called Silicon Anchor News. It was supposed to be like a website that told the stories of the local business community where I live. Silicon Valley, Silicon Alley, so that's Alley's New York, Valley's like the Bay Area, San Francisco, and then a bunch of other places across the country were doing this too. And it made me think like, oh, we'll call it Silicon Anchor, like your anchor your business here or whatever, the nautical theme. Seemed to make sense at the time, whatever. I did that for probably 2 years or so, and just ultimately turned that into Hatch. Hatch is already there. It really, like, if you've ever done a bunch of businesses and you realize that they're all kind of the same, it ends up becoming a couple $1,000s extra a year for something, and you're like, this could all be under one. And then we were doing kind of mix and match events and all this other stuff. And so it got me thinking about all the people. So I found this video. I don't even know how I found it, but I got to Vimeo on Friday night, and Vimeo is like a YouTube or a Wistia. And I got to this site on Friday night, and I was like, oh my goodness, I totally forgot that I had created this company called Silicon Anchor, because ultimately it got acquired by Hatch, which wasn't for any monetary value or anything like that. We just kind of took all the assets and put it under Hatch because it's easier to build one brand than it is to build multiple brands. And I don't really think monikers work anyway, so whatever. Moniker is like a fake name for an area. So I've been looking through a bunch of old content, and I was like, man, it would be really cool to maybe start sharing some of this stuff, because a lot of it is evergreen content, meaning it's content that is still relevant today than it was back in 2012, 2010, 2013, kind of when I got back into my business career. So it's really quite cool to kind of look back at this stuff. And so it made me start to think about, okay, I did this world where I was told to go down this path. You guys have heard this story before, right? Like go, graduate high school, go to college, get a job, work yourself up, yada, yada, yada. That wasn't it for me. But I had a degree in journalism. I had a degree in TV news. And now that I look back on it, I'm like, man, but I learned business. I learned this kind of style of business that I didn't go to school for. I think I took an accounting class, maybe an economics class. I'll tell you, if I did well in either of them, actually, I think accounting 101 I did well in. And then I think everything else I bombed. Let's just say C's and D's. And because at the time I didn't care about it. And so recently, I was putting together some of like these scheduled posts that you can do on Facebook, which allows you to schedule out some of the content that you want to do. And so I was like, maybe I could share some of this old content. That's great, whatever. But then, how did I learn business? How did I learn where I had been traditionally trained for years? This one style of art, let's call it, this one style of career. TV, journalism, news, media, whatever. But now I have to learn the business side of it. And so as I was thinking, I was like, man, I have really learned to just do it. And I remember often there were like sponsorships that I was trying to get, or just meet certain people, or understand how people created the business or tools or companies, or been a part of some of those companies. And I learned this thing, and I think it's so important, and I recommend all of you doing this. So if you're looking, even if you're a successful entrepreneur and you've hit every milestone that you want, I still recommend you doing this, because it's always better to learn from more people. And so basically, I would read a magazine article. I would read a newspaper article. I would learn about someone. And I literally would then just go and reach out to that person and say, hello. You've heard me say this many a times, right? Just say hi. But how does it look in practical world? So I actually just had a meeting down at 1701, the co-working space in Virginia Beach where I live. And I was talking to Jeff and Lisa, the co-founders there, and they were telling me about this guy who created like Drone Racing League. And literally while I was there, I was like, what's his name? And I go on to LinkedIn and I reach out to him. I connect with him and I say, hey, I can't remember his name right now. Doesn't matter. Hey, person, I just learned about you from Jeff and Lisa. Really love what you're doing. Zach. That's it. And he goes, oh, any friend of them would be a friend of mine. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's crazy. Here's the thing. He just sold his business for $2 billion. So I find this connection. I have the, what do they say, cojones to actually email him, which most people are afraid of. And guess what? I have a relationship with him now. No, I don't necessarily have a very strong relationship, but I have at least connected the dots. And so there's a couple of things that I think are important in this whole process. Number one, I actually wrote a pretty interesting blog post on this called like an entrepreneur's MBA or something like that. And I looked through and I recognized that most MBAs, like the average MBA is something like $140,000 a year. And really all they're doing is teaching you a couple, if you have an MBA, I'm not trying to take a dig at you. I'm just saying, this is basically, from my research, I do not have an MBA, what they're going to teach you and how you can kind of take that and do it on your own without spending a couple $100,000. So basically, they're going to teach you finance, leadership, marketing, operational management, strategy, business analytics, and macro and microeconomics. Now, I think it's a good thing to have a good understanding of each of those, but you're probably not going to be an expert in all of those things. That's why you would bring people on to help you in those things. So if you think of that, finance through macro, microeconomics, really, if you think about the business experience tied to that, so you got the MBA curriculum, and then you got kind of like the business experience where it would be like industry successes, losses, relationships, depression, journey experiences, key influences, education, growth, cutting back, implementation, sourcing technologies. A lot of those things aren't necessarily taught in school. And so it's more like you'll get that through TED Talks, you get that through YouTube and YouTube University, conversations like this, podcasts, whatever, where you're really getting that kind of like real inside information, where the other side is kind of like your traditional, what do you call it? Just your traditional kind of education. And so by pairing those things together and learning how to get someone to meet with you can be very powerful. And so what I would suggest is do this simple technique of find the people that you want to meet with, find the people that you just want to have a relationship with or say hello to. Create a list of those people, simply send them a note saying, hi, really appreciate everything that you've done. I respect what you're doing. I just wanted to connect. And then if they connect back, maybe invite them to coffee, get them on the phone for a few minutes, take them to dinner. And so instead of spending those couple $100,000 on a degree, instead, create your own kind of alumni network and degree by reaching out to these business professionals, business owners, founders, investors, mentors, leaders, people that are good at their crafts, all these business leaders, all these business people, right? Whether they call themselves a business person, it doesn't matter. Like just people that are involved in business and pick their brains. You'd be surprised at how many people say yes. But then what you can do with it is you get real life scenarios that aren't necessarily book taught, which is pretty powerful. And that's basically what I've done is between a mixture of YouTube University, which is basically content anywhere in the world, could be YouTube, podcast, wherever, taking those stories, that content, and pairing that with the conversations that I've had with successful people, both where I live and all across the world. That's how I created my own kind of MBA in a box. And it's powerful because I feel like I have way more in-depth stories on things that most people don't talk about. And oftentimes professors in general haven't lived through the things that they're teaching or haven't done it in decades. So if people are teaching about non-internet based things, it can be hard for that person to teach. So think about it, all right? How do you get a business degree without getting a business degree at school? You reach out to as many business people as possible and you learn from them, the positives and negatives, and really try and figure out what they did to succeed. What you will learn is that many of them will not only respond, but give you really, really deep insights into some of the stuff that they're doing. And it's fascinating and it can help you tremendously. So what are you waiting for? Pick up the phone, write an email, find the people that you want to connect with, say hello, take them to coffee, get them on a phone call, get them on a Skype call, take them to lunch, and instead of spending 140 grand a year, take the 140 and divide it by a bunch of $2 cups of coffee, and you're going to learn a lot. If you're looking for the full article, go to startwithhatch.com/MBA, like MBA. Hope you guys have wonderful days. Episode 100 of Zack Miller Live is coming soon.